Now we have some major new updates that have been released in the YNW Melly court case, as it's making everyone very concerned for his freedom. Now we have so much evidence and information to share in this video, so let's get straight into it. Now law enforcement's been working around the clock, trying to break down what really happened the night that Juvie and Sack Chaser sadly passed, and well, it now seems as if that question has been solved, and here is how it starts. So some new court documents have actually been released. We're first going to be going over the kind of older ones that a lot of people still don't know and sharing the news for last. The first document states, and I quote, "Then we have also a video of Mr. Demons admitting to doing an act towards two individuals in the head." Now, I had to change a few words in that statement. You understand what I'm trying to say. Allegedly, on YNW Melly's cell phone, there was a video of YNW Melly admitting to doing the act towards YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser. Right here, if the law enforcement can build a strong enough case, is already enough evidence to put Melly behind bars. But in the next court document, it states, and I quote, "This video was on Mr. Demon's cell phone, which was brought to my office by Jameson Francis." And that is how we had that. And that is all of the evidence that Your Honor has. So here is actually where it starts to get pretty interesting. First off, Mr. Demons in these documents is actually YNW Melly. I know, pretty strange last name considering this court case, but it is him. Now, while YNW Melly has been sitting in a jail cell for the last few years, his cell phone has actually been being held by his manager, Jameson Francis. Now this is actually YNW Melly's manager, known as 100K Management. He's a manager for many big people like King Von, YNW Melly, and the list kind of goes on. He's very trusted. So it turns out law enforcement ended up putting a warrant out for YNW Melly's cell phone, so he had no choice but to turn it in. Allegedly, law enforcement can do something called a data extract, which means they can pull everything and anything that was ever on that cell phone. This means deleted text messages, deleted photos, even Snapchats can be brought back to life and given to the law enforcement for new evidence against YNW Melly. The YNW Melly having that video of him admitting to doing the act towards Juvie and Sack Chaser was actually deleted but brought back to life using the data extract. So does this mean that YNW Melly was trying to hide that video from the public? Who knows? But going on to the next court document, it says, and I quote, "These particular cell phones, which were both iPhone 10s on a T-Mobile network," and T-Mobile has a very interesting feature where it will tell you the environment that the cell phone is in. So from these cell phone records, I can tell you the exact moment that Demons got out of the car and staged the drive-by location. Now, this is absolutely huge in this court case, as personally, I did not even know cell phone providers can go back in time and see where a phone was. But law enforcement, they have everything on lock. They want YNW Melly, and they believe that YNW Melly did this act towards Juvie and Sack Chaser. And well, they're going to be using that tool of going back in time and seeing where the cell phone was, as YNW Melly's story of what happened on that night just does not add up. But as of right now, the law enforcement believe that YNW Melly, YNW Juvie, YNW Sack Chaser, and YNW Bortland, they were all at a recording studio for several hours. When it was time to pack up and head home for some sleep, YNW Melly and the rest of the YNW boys, they packed their Jeep and started heading home. YNW Melly ended up taking a back road home to skip the early morning traffic, I believe anyway, but while on the way home, YNW Melly says that a vehicle ends up getting into Melly's lane, eventually getting YNW Melly's driver to pull the car over, and the other vehicle that did that ended up lighting up Melly's vehicle. This is pretty much explained as a war zone happening out in the middle of the street, like some real GTA level stuff. People allegedly hopped out of the opposing vehicle and started absolutely lighting up YNW Melly's in a 360 motion. The car was hit from everywhere. And even if you don't believe me, here are some photos of YNW Melly's Jeep. It's an actual miracle that Melly and Bortlen ended up getting out of this without a scratch on them. Sadly, Juvie and Sack Chaser though did pass in the process of this happening. Now, YNW Melly and Bortlen, after this incident went down, allegedly sat in the vehicle in complete shock on what just happened until realizing that Juvie and Sack Chaser were affected so terribly. But here's where it starts to get a little weird. After realizing that Juvie and Sack Chaser are literally sitting in the vehicle in critical condition, YNW Melly and Bortlen, they then wait 40 minutes before getting them any sort of medical attention. Instead of calling an ambulance to the location of where it happened, they actually insisted on driving the two to the hospital themselves, which took so long. YNW Melly and Bortlen were then arrested and taken into jail for questioning. Then later, Melly ended up having to turn himself into law enforcement as they believed he's the main person who did the act. So if you remember earlier in the video, law enforcement is working with T-Mobile so they can go back in time to see where was YNW Melly going for that 40 minutes after this all happened. What law enforcement believed happened was that YNW Melly got Bortlen or whoever was driving the vehicle to pull the car over into a side parking lot on a back road where nobody was there, nobody could hear a firearm being used. A distraction was then made inside of the car where then YNW Melly did the act towards Juvie and Sack Chaser, and then they proceeded to hop out of the vehicle, rough it up with their own firearms, and then drive them to the hospital as a good, get out of jail free type card and a good story on what happened. Now, I'm not claiming that that is what happened. I believe, honestly, what YNW Melly is saying, that he is innocent in my personal opinion, but still, allegedly from a lot of online sources, that is the story that's currently going on what law enforcement believe happened. And the strangest thing of all is that YNW Bortlen, who was arrested with Melly at the same time, was actually granted bail until the trial started. Meanwhile, Melly had to sit in a jail cell until trial started. Now, does this mean that law enforcement has significant evidence towards YNW Melly? It could, due to that cell phone video. We're just gonna have to wait and see how it all plays out. Anyways guys, it's been District Trending and I'm ending the video here. I'm out. Peace.